All right, guys, welcome back into another NFL DFS video. Got the Thanksgiving Day slate here for you guys, but before I get into all that, I got some exciting news. So with PGA DFS not going on this week, I was able to kind of do some data for NFL season. So I got an updated data sheet here. This is for kind of the receiver position, and then I also do have like the master simple projection sheet for the main slate as well. So this is for the main slate only right now. I will have all the positions filled out there on the 9 to 5 page. So I'm excited for that. It's still not going to add anything onto the total 9 to 5 membership, still $10 a month. So you'll get all this premium information for still $10 a month. So I'm looking forward to that. Excited to release that out to you guys. Thought I'd bring that up on the channel here. But let's get into the Thursday night picks, or Thanksgiving Day picks is what I should say. Let's go. All right, so we'll do it how we always do. We'll start off with the quarterbacks, and then we'll work our way across the slate. So, Deshaun Watson does seem like the safest play on the board, and he's priced accordingly. You look at the matchup with the Detroit Lions. They're a matchup where it doesn't really affect the quarterback's average too much. It's kind of an even kill, middle of the road defense for opposing quarterbacks. That just tells us that Deshaun Watson should be looking at in his average, which is around 24 DK points. I'm perfectly fine paying up for him. And honestly, guys, on the slate, it's kind of easy to pay up for him as well. So, that's going to be an option for you guys. And then Big Ben, I don't mind. He has thrown the ball over 40 times in 4 out of his last 5 starts. The only game that he didn't, though, was against the Baltimore Ravens. That is the worry there. Deontay Johnson did get injured in that game. So, maybe that was a factor with it. But Big Ben, I don't mind him. If you're trying to do a game stack, that'd be the route that I would go with Big Ben. And then we don't have any great values, so the next one I can recommend is going to be Matthew Stafford. Now, he didn't look that good last week. He does have that thumb injury there going on. And Kenny Galladay is most likely going to be out once again. So, the receivers are kind of banged up there in that offense for Stafford. But, just based on the matchup here with the Houston Texans, it's not one that's, crazy good, but it's not one that's bad. Just looking at the Houston defense is one that quarterbacks typically just hit their season average. So I think we can expect Stafford to score right around 18 DK points. Nothing, too much less than that. Nothing too much more than that. It's going to be right around that 18 DK points total. So don't mind him as a play. Still, I think the safest route is going to be paying up for Deshaun Watson. All right, guys, now moving on to the running back position. This is where it gets interesting. So the running back that I want to start with is going to be DeAndre Swift, who was supposed to be the core play for us last week. Unfortunately, that's not happened because he was out. But now we get to match up with the Houston Texans, who the Houston Texans are just one of the worst run defenses. On average, they're giving up 7.7 more DK points per game to a player's DFS average. So right now, DeAndre Swift is averaging 14.5 DK points. Just based on that stat, he's going to score 22 DK points. Now, obviously, that's kind of a loose end stat, but it's just pointing towards him having a good week. Another stat that's, really looking forward to with this matchup is that the Houston Texans have actually given up the most rushing yards to opposing running backs. And that kind of just tells you that Swift should be a safe play as well. You don't have to worry about those ups and downs there. It's not all just like touchdown dependent, although they have been giving up a decent amount of those. So DeAndre Swift, even at this price point, he should have a safe floor. He's a play that I really do like. After that, Duke Johnson in an easy matchup as well. Now, he has struggled a little bit. This might deter people from playing him, and I think that's going to be a mistake. We saw him get 5 targets last week. He was very ineffective on the ground. I just don't see them turning to anyone else, and obviously the Detroit Lions are the worst rush defense so far this year. A lot of that's mostly due to the fact that they've given up 19 total touchdowns on the season. That's insane. They've given up plenty via the passing game as well. So we can kind of expect Duke Johnson to kind of get some work there as well in the passing game. And maybe that's just how bad the Houston Texans run game has been via running backs. Maybe that just sets up really well for Deshaun Watson. Another reason why I really like him on the slate. But we just look at the Detroit Lions. They've given up an average of 10.6 more DK points per game to a running back season average. So just looking at Duke Johnson, that stat would tell us that he's going to get right around, 17 DK points in this one. They're giving up the most DK points per game at 34.8 DK points. Just for references points, the Houston Texans are next, and they're giving up 32 DK points per game. So just a little bit more per game. And then the next 2 running backs that I want to touch on are going to be for the Washington football team. This really comes down to game script. If it's going to be a game that favors the Washington football team, if they're going to be up, then it's going to be Antonio Gibson. He had 21.8 DK points against the Dallas Cowboys the first time out. And you've really just seen it. Any game that the football team has been trailing, it's more or less just been J.D. McKissic. So J.D. McKissic is going to be involved in the passing game. If they're down in this game, if it's the other way around and they're up, he's not going to get used that much. We saw that the last time they played Dallas. Now, I don't think this is going to be a blowout. I think this is going to be a much more close game. But I do think that kind of the strategy this week for this slate should be, probably just rolling with Swift, rolling with Duke, and then you're going to play one of the two Washington running backs, kind of just depending on how you guys see the game script going, and then just going from there. And then I should mention Gus Edwards as well. People are going to play him a lot. He's min price going against Pittsburgh. I'm not going to say it's a trap play, but with all the other running backs out, with Mark Ingram and with J.K. Dobbins out with the COVID protocols, he's probably going to be a popular play. And I'm not going to say it's going to be a bad play. Okay, he's the min price. He should hit value as well. But more or less for me, I could see myself not playing him just due to ownership levels, fading that ownership a little bit. All right, moving on to the receivers here. So Terry McLaurin, I've kind of said this a decent amount. If you guys can afford to pay up for him, you should do it. He had 22 DK points against the Dallas Cowboys the first time out. If you just look at his season average, guys, he has been absolutely insane. Only one game where he didn't score double-digit DK points. That was against a tough matchup against the LA Rams. Everything else has been stellar. He's seen over 7 targets in every single game so far this year. So if you can afford to pay up for him, I think that you guys should go out and do that. I do like Deontay Johnson in this one as well. The targets just continue to be there for him. In games that he started and finished, he's seen over 10 targets per game. It's just absolutely insane. So I just really like the target share there for Deontay Johnson. He has kind of been their running game for them, if that makes sense, where they've just kind of been doing short, quick passes instead of establishing the run. They've just been using Deontay Johnson to kind of get those short yardage, get those drives going. So I do like him as a play this week. And once again, I'm surprised at Amari Cooper's price point. Oh my gosh, this is too cheap. He's had 2 duds on the season, but only 2 duds. One of them against the Giants, and then the other game was when they're down to Danucci or whatever the heck his name was. Not a good quarterback, but he's still been seeing a ton of targets, guys. He's still been averaging well over 10 DK points per game. At this price point, I really do like him as a play. You see what he did against the Washington football team in week 7. He was able to score 15.5 DK points at this price point. I absolutely love that play. Then we can go back to the well with Brennan Cooks. Now, I was really surprised that he only saw 5 targets last week, but he was still able to score double-digit DK points. This matchup is not one that scares me at all. I really do like Brennan Cooks as a play in this one. Before last week, he had seen over 8 targets in every game since Bill O'Brien had taken over, since Bill O'Brien had been fired. So still a solid play. I mean, just been a stellar play pretty much every week since Bill O'Brien's been fired, and the price point is just not right. So we can just take advantage of him as a play. Then Marvin Jones Jr., I actually think is going to be a sneaky play, especially if you are trying to game stack this game where you're playing Watson. Maybe you're playing the running backs. You kind of have to play someone else in this game as well. Kind of game stack it. Marvin Jones would be the play I'd go with as well if you're really trying to game stack this one, because Marvin Jones is sneaky good. Over the last 5 weeks, he's averaging 15.6 DK points per game. Targets have been there, and they're kind of just banged out. If Kenny Galladay's out, it's a softer matchup. I could see Marvin Jones going out and exploding this week. Then lastly, just touching on some lower price plays. So Willie Snead at a good price point there. You see the target share. He's cheaper than Marquise Brown, and they've pretty much been the exact same play. DK kind of figured that out, though, so they've finally priced Brown at a interesting cost. I think some people are going to be baited into playing him, and maybe they'll get lucky and rewarded with that play. I'm not exactly sure I see that happening. One of those 2 guys, they just need to see a deep bomb, and that's really all they need to pay off their price point. And then 2 very sneaky plays. So Randall Cobb's looking like he's going to be out again. So Kiki Cutie could be a cheap GPP flyer for you. He's almost the min price, had 4 targets last week. He's going to be the guy operating out of the slot a decent amount. That is my favorite value play. If you have to go down that low, I'm not suggesting that you do it, though. And we're going to move on into tight ends. So tight ends, it does look like Mark Andrews is going to play. It does look like TJ Hawkinson is going to play. If you guys can afford to pay up for them, I think that you should do it. The only 2 other tight ends I'm looking at on the slate are going to be Jordan Akins, who actually has been looking good on film. Yeah, he's really standing out. He seems like a guy that's due to have a massive week. Now, this isn't exactly the matchup that we can really see that happening in, but you could have said the same thing against the New England Patriots last week, and he still was able to score 13.3 DK points. Now, it's not that reliable, and that's why he's priced that low. Also, don't mind Logan Thomas again this week. I played him a decent amount this year. It's just because the targets have been there. He's kind of been the cheap discount play that you can roll with because you know the targets are going to continue to be there. He had 16 DK points against the Cowboys the first time that these teams met. Then defensively, guys, honestly, just that's going to be just based on how your lineup is. So obviously, if you just don't want to play the defense that you're playing against with your quarterback, I mean, you just can't do anything that correlates. So I'm not saying that there's a standout defensive play on the slate, although I do like the Cowboys at their price point going against the Washington football team. But I'm not overly ecstatic about that. So pretty much what I'm saying is if you're playing Deshaun Watson and you're stacking that Detroit-Houston game, then you obviously can't play one of those two defenses. But if you're stacking one of the other games, I'm perfectly fine with playing Houston or Detroit's defense for this slate. All right, but that's all I have for you guys in this video. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please give me a like and subscribe. I do appreciate that. If you guys are interested in joining 9 to 5 Nation, the link is in the description below. We'll have the NFL DFS core plays video out here shortly as well, so definitely check that out. It's going to be a good thing. All right, thanks, guys. Oh, and as always, let's keep cashing.